Do you have a Halloween project and you need a spooky pumpkin? Well, this one's really straightforward. No geometry nodes, just shader nodes, bit of sculpting. Off you go. Okay then, so for today's tutorial, we're looking at Blender 3.3.0. You can get away with earlier versions of Blender because we're not doing anything particularly complex. There won't be any geometry nodes in there. So if you've got an earlier version and you're more comfortable with that, then by all means, use that earlier version. I find it's typically best to get the latest one. So if you want to take a moment and go to blender.org and get the latest one, then go for it. If not, you're more than welcome just to use whatever version you have. Now, this tutorial is going to be quite long, so I'm going to put the chapters in, and I do that with all my videos anyway. So if you're looking for a particular aspect of this video that you want to use for your own projects, feel free to jump around. You can watch the whole thing if you like, but I think it's going to be quite a long one. So if you're struggling and you just go, oh, go get to this bit, have a look at the chapters and just see if you can find the bit that you're most interested in. So then let's kick this off, and we're going to start with a new screen. The first thing we're going to do is get rid of the default cube. Everyone who follows the channel knows that I don't like doing that. I like using the default cube. I think the default cube is highly underrated. But in this case, we're going to be using a UV sphere. So that's Control A, Shift A even. There you go. UV sphere. I'm not going to change any of the settings on it. We're just going to quickly build this. So we're going to go into edit mode. And what you want to do is, first of all, click off. So all the points are unselected. You want to click on the proportional editing, which is that little button there. Make sure you're on node. You click the center, and you can use, so if I go, G, there we go. You can use the middle mouse button, and what it does is if I zoom right in, it's going to behave like I've only selected that one node, and that's pretty good. But what we want to do is distribute this. So proportional editing gives us the options. What I'm doing there is I'm scrolling out with the middle mouse button, and you can just manipulate this. What I want to do is go in the Z direction. Just do that. You don't want it to be. The thing about this is you can just experiment. It's going to be nigh on impossible for people to create identical pumpkins using this. It's a very tricky thing to do. So just make it your own. We're going to go G in the Z direction, and again you can just manipulate that. You want to drag it in a little bit. There we go. In fact, let's do this. G, open out, Z, like that. You just want to extend it. There's no right or wrong answer to this. Let's just G, Z that again. Just do it as many times as you like until you're happy with it. There you go. So it looks a bit clunky there, but don't worry. We are going to be subdividing this and getting a bit more detail in it. And for your own projects, just take as much time as you like. We're going to be speeding through this a little bit. So what we're going to do now is click the vertices, or the edges rather. You click on that one there. You're pressing Control. Select it round like that. So going for this edge. Now to select multiple of these, because you want to go all the way around it, it is Alt and Shift. And then just click that one there. This one here. Doesn't have to be precise. I think I'm accidentally getting this precise. Oh, no, there is a slight bit of variation there, but we like variation on this because there's no such thing as a symmetrical pumpkin. So you spend as little or as much time as you want, just getting it to look like that. That isn't too bad. Yeah, maybe that one's a little bit too big. Tell you what, let's do that again. And we want to go, I'll tell you what, if we do that, there we go. Set down like that. Control, and just follow that round. Like that. Let's Alt, Shift. Just do that. Yeah, in hindsight, you probably don't want to make it too big. yeah, looking good. Looking good. So what we want to do now is, now you've selected these, you want to press S for, oh, you want to turn off proportional editing before you do anything else. Make sure that's off, and then press S again, and just slightly in, and that kind of creates this kind of pumpkin-y look. At the moment, this will look a bit weird, but that's okay. Right, turn proportional editing on. Just go back to the node. I'll just drag this middle bit up a bit. Again, in Z. Oops, where's my... There you go. Just bring that up just a little bit. And that's just personal preference. There's no right or wrong answer to this. So that's looking kind of low poly pumpkin at the moment. Now what we want to do is we want just to add a bit of detail to this. So we go view through. Is there a proper name to that? Toggle X-ray. Very nice. Basically, you can see through it. You click the faces, select all of them, right click, subdivide. Just gives it that little bit extra. And it'll make sense in a moment why we're doing this. Go back to that one there. Yeah, that one's kind of the better one. Now we're going to do some cutting. Now this one, you can, again, it's like the rest of this, you can spend as little or as long as you like on this. We're going to probably do this quite quickly just to give you the idea, and then you, for your own projects, you can spend a bit more time getting it however you want. So you press the K button for knife, and the thing to do is to aim on these nodes. You can aim elsewhere, but it can lead to artifacts and weird edges appearing. So if you can get it on a node, great. If you get it on a vertex, okay, yeah. If you get it on a face, it'll work. You just have more work to do afterwards. So let's go for this node up here, and you can see it's automatically snapping to it. So let's just drag this through and just connect it. There you go. There we go. So just kind of the outline of your eye. Now when you're done, you press enter. That brings you out of it. And what I want to do straight away is just go along and, keeping control switch down, delete these faces. Thing is, there's no real right or wrong answer to this, so it looks weird. They're always meant to look a bit weird, and you never see a perfectly cut pumpkin. So you know, if it doesn't look right, don't worry. It's, if anything, if it looks right, then there's something wrong with it. Now, what I'm going to do is it's going to be fairly symmetrical if I did it that way. So actually, yeah, let's do it that way, because the method we are going to use here actually makes it look a bit more random. So if I'm going to cut across to about here, that's up to there, bring that down to about here. Okay then, so just to make this a bit easier to watch, I'll sped up this section, but I think you can see the general process that's going on here. Use the knife function and just cut around the eyes and then cut out a mouth. Okay, yeah, that's looking pretty good. Okay, don't worry too much about how accurate it looks. So now we're going to come out of editing mode. So we're back into object mode. And there you have it. That's your basic pumpkin. Now what we're going to do before we move on to the next bit is we're going to very quickly cut a top out of here. Actually, that's back into edit mode. And we're going to go back to knife. And it's just the same trick before. Doesn't need to be particularly neat. In fact, if anything, the less neat, the better it looks. Doesn't mean make an absolute hog's dinner out of it, but just don't be overly obsessed with being super accurate, because the less... Oops, I've gone and done that. Let's kill that. Oops. Okay, so you're not coming out of it. Let's just kill that and come out.
A few moments later.
Okay, let's just try that again. Computer throwing a little bit of a wobbler. Make sure you're looking the right way up. So Z, looking down, go to K again, and you want to go just again, make it as messy as you like. There you go. Big star pattern like that. Always make sure I get it to the end. When you've done your star pattern, press enter. Now we're not going to delete this. Instead, what we're going to do, and it's a little bit of a pain, because now this time we do have to hit it just right. Just do that. No, that's not going to help. We need to go back to face mode. Now we've got to essentially, I tell you what, the fastest way of doing it probably is like this. And then deselect the ones we don't need. So make sure we capture the ones we do need. Make life a little bit harder for you, but there you go. Hate doing that. Put that back to there. We just deselect the ones we don't need. And I've got a knackered it. Okay, let's try that again. Doing this right? Okay, yeah, it's actually the shift button that was doing wrong. Okay, so holding shift, select the faces you want. Bingo them. Just make sure you capture everything within the star. And then what we'll do is we come across and we just individually select. Just make sure you can always just click on them twice if you accidentally deselect one you don't want. That's weird. Should have deselected all of them. There we go. Knock that out. Knock that out. Knock that out. That one, that one, that one. There we go. Okay, so now we've got our star. Oh, nearly. A couple of bits still left over. Okay, so let's just have a quick walk around there. A little bit there. 1, 2. Yep, looking good. So what I want to do now is go Shift D. That copies it. I'm going to go right click, snaps it back into position. But then what I want to do is click P by selection, and it's created this extra components. So if I was to go back into object mode, I could isolate that one. So let's just go H there. You can see that bit. In fact, you can see there's still some artifacts there left over. So let's just very quickly tidy that up. Edit mode again. Yeah, we missed a couple of bits. Delete that. Delete that. And delete that. That. Zoom in. Delete that. Okay, now then you might have spotted, I think there was one bit down here. Yep, there we go. We actually missed a point. What we're going to do here actually is just go 1, 2, 3, holding control, press M, merge at center. Just nicely fills that in. Now then, if we go back to object mode and we're going to go back to our sphere, H that. What we want to do now actually is do the exact opposite maneuver. We need to get rid of this, so I'm going to hide that. Back to edit mode for here. There we go. Looking down even. So another sped up section here, because this one is a bit of a laborious task. Just basically pick out the elements and delete, but make sure you've got that lid hidden. So now we've done that, we can go back into object mode, and what we want to do first is add a subdivision. Okay, now I find knocking this up to 3 helps quite a lot. There we go. So immediately you've now got a much smoother looking pumpkin. Still a few things you can do to it. A little bits of cleaning, you can even shade smooth it as well if you want on top of that. But now what I want to do, and this is where it gets a bit complex, is we have a solidifier. We want to make that come in quite a bit. You can see straight away we're getting some artifacts going on here. In fact, is it better to do it that way around? So that's it, yeah. Go solidify first, then subdivision. Now that's actually not looking too bad on the off. My previous goes on this. Stu, auto, shade smooth. Yeah, you can see little things going on there, and that's because we've sliced around corners and it's created a bit of a jagged edge to it. But not to worry, there are little things. If you're not happy about that, we can go back to edit mode. Just turn these off for the time being, and yeah, you can see where the problems have occurred. Let's kill that as well. Yeah, that's first things first. Let's clean this up. It's just a case of going round, wiping out little things like that. I find as well, if you just simplify the match, so that one to there, merge even, merge. At last, or first, or centre, it doesn't really matter. Just go around looking for anything that's a little bit out of place. If it can be made any easier. It's actually not too bad, this particular mesh. Oh, there's a good one. There's a good example there. So it's 1, 2, 3. So merge at last. There you go. It's just really a case of go around and just clean it up. If you see nodes that are a bit close enough. There we go. Just a little bit of tidying. So it doesn't look too bad there actually. Nothing mega that's jumping out and saying please create a really odd setup. Might just do that one there. Merge at last. Merge last. Oh, actually, some there looking a bit dodgy. We can see some there as well, can't we? Last. And oh, come here. That one there. That one there. Merge. Last. Okay, that should make life a little bit easier. I think on the top here there were a couple that kind of stuck out a little bit. Yeah, I want to get rid of that face there. So let's delete that one. Back to those points. Don't want to go too crazy here because we've got our top section of our pumpkin. And we want that to kind of line up, so we don't go too crazy with remeshing this area. Otherwise we're just back to square one. Just a little bit there. Those faces. There's a face there. So all these tiny faces we kind of missed. Okay, so let's do that. One, two, merge last. Then that. Merge at last. Just want to make sure we're not do anything crazy with the mesh. A bit like that. Go there to there. Merge last. Okay, you know what? Shall we? They look a bit close. Merge last. Yeah. Okay, rest of that. There's three there. Merge last. Now, if you were serious about making a pumpkin model and you want to make it look uber accurate, your best course of action really is to go into some sculpting. But we're not going to do that in this tutorial. We're more interested in just building a very basic pumpkin and then adding some cool effects to it. If you want to go down the line of sculpting, then Grant Abbott's tutorial is probably best for that one. Can always recommend it. In fact, I'll stick a link in the description for it. Bit unusual. Appreciate it was it's advertising someone else's tutorials, but Grant's tutorials have got me out of a lot of corners. So very good, very good. Well worth watching them. Okay, so there's your basic pumpkin again. Let's go back to object mode. Let's add a solidifier. We'll crank that up. That's actually looking pretty good. I'm quite happy with that. That's awesome. Okay, now what I want to do is subdivision. Now, it doesn't matter which way round you do this. I find sometimes moving the subdivision to first. There you go. And as you can see, we've gone rid of that kind of edgy look. And if I crank that up, turn those up, there we go. You kind of got this kind of curvy. Now, personally, I really like the curvy look. I think that suits this a bit more better, a bit more cartoony. If you can see down there, there's a couple of extra bits. Yeah, let's not worry too much about. Yeah, let's not worry too much about them. But essentially, that would be a case of going in and just tidying up a bit more around those areas. But let's leave that for now. So that's your basic pumpkin. That's looking pretty good. And if we do the same now to the top, hide, got this one, and we want to solidify that one as well. And just remind me, what do we go to? 0.8. It doesn't have to be the same number, just as long as it looks all right. And we are going to want a subdivision modifier as well. 2, 3. Okay. So you might find that we could do with maybe doing a bit more work on that one. should smooth it. There we go. But this is, as I say, this is just a very basic tutorial on this one. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to have our light set up so that it beams through these areas. So we're going to do a little bit of scaling, and then we're going to go GZ. It pops out. And what that's going to do, when we do put a light to it, it'll shine through that area. So that'll look pretty cool when we get around to that. But that, in a nutshell, we go to the camera. Of course, the camera's pointing in the wrong direction. Let's do our little tricks to it. So you want to track to object that. Whoops, that helps if you press the right button. And then if we go to the top, there we go. G, and over here, G. This is what I do with most of my animation stuff. Get the camera to actually track to an object as opposed to just aiming the camera in the right area. There we go. And then if we go render image, oh, let's EEVEE, yeah, leave it all on. Render image. The light's probably in the wrong place. Of course, the light's in the wrong place. Let's move that out, move that around. Looking down. Over there, like that. There we go, and that's your basic pumpkin. I'm going to put a stalk in that in a minute. But yeah, that's part one of that tutorial. Okay then, so now we've got our basic shape. What we want to do is add a bit of texture to this. So there's been a couple of tutorials on how to do this. I'm going to do a very basic one, but again, if you want to do something a bit more detailed, then there are I'll put a couple of links in the description just to point you towards some tutorials that I recommend. But for a very basic one, let's just go into this. Zoom in. In fact, let's give these some names. I should have given these names earlier. Pumpkin. Damn you, caps lock. Pumpkin 1 and pumpkin lid. There you go. So we want to create a new shader. And what we're going to do is we're going to keep the principal BDF, and instead what we're going to do is we're going to do a Musgrave texture. Helps if I actually learn the names of these. I'm going to plug that into a color ramp. We'll put that color ramp straight into base color. Do the height there. You can see this is starting to catch up now. Get this kind of cool little camo effect, which does look pretty cool as this. Maybe we'll use that in the future tutorials as camouflage. Then you want to go Control T, and I always put this to object. Okay, I'm not overly worried about these middle bits here. When we do all our effects, you tend to find that this bit gets drowned out, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. But again, the way to get around it is if you were to apply this texture to the outer surface and then make another texture and apply it to this inner surface. But for this tutorial, it's one of those things that you're not going to notice. So we want to crank this quite high. Let's see, maybe about 100. Okay. And then what we want to do is we want to play around with these settings here. So what the computer is trying to do there is applying this texture, pumping it through here, and it's telling it where to put these colours. So I want to go to yellow like that. Mucky around with it a bit longer. That's looking pretty good. Oops, wrong one. It helps if you press the right button. That's not looking terrible on the off. Again, play around with it. It's all looking good. And then we want to do, because they're never smooth. Pumpkins are never smooth. And actually you might find that because of the way we've meshed this, it's almost too perfect. So we're going to have a bit of a bump going on. drop that bump into the normal. And we're going to drop that into the strength. No, we're not. We're going to drop into the height. Okay, now on the off, looks a bit crazy. That is too bumpy. So we're going to drop the strength down a little bit to about there. That means we can play around a little bit more with some of these settings. That's maybe a bit too dark. Actually, let's do it there. Might still be a little bit strong. You do want some detail. There we go. That's already starting to look pretty good. What I also like to do is add a little bit more to it. So we're going to go bump again. Put a bump in here. We're going to do for a Voronoi. Put that into the height. And you can use the same. Yeah, like that. Give that a second for it to catch up. Actually, that doesn't look too bad. I quite like the look of that. That's quite groovy, actually. Actually, I wonder. I'm just having to play at the moment. It's quite fascinating to see what it does. Yeah, there's a word. Yeah. Strength. Yeah, they had to do it. If you were so well inclined, I'm just mucking around because I just think that looks pretty awesome. Could do a color ramp. Put that into there. And if we were to make that kind of bright blue, let's make it green. We're going to get rid of this, so don't worry about having to mimic it. Distance to edge. It's distance to edge, isn't it? And it's disconnected it. That a way around. Yeah, if you're so well inclined, you could almost put a little bit of effect like that in it. That was pretty awesome. We're not gonna do that. That's not really part of this tutorial. But if you were so well inclined and you wanted to, you could quite easily put a little bit of a ghostly electrical effect around it. And that's how you do it. Already doing quite a lot to this tutorial. It's already going to be quite a big tutorial, so let's not dwell too much on that. So yeah, I want to add that, and we want to drop that strength down. There you go. Noise into it, maybe. Let's try that noise texture straight in the middle. A second for it to catch up. Yeah, actually, you know what? I'm gonna stick with that. You could just see, I mean, this is how I make stuff usually. I just mucky around with textures and just apply them. And just, when it gets to something that you think, well, that looks quite interesting, I tend to just stick to it. So that is your basic pumpkin. Again, there are loads of tutorials out there on the best way of setting up your pumpkin materials. Again, I'll put some links in the description. In fact, I'll drop a link at the top of the screen at this point if you want to go off and have a look at them. But that's in a nutshell how I would do it, and we want to do the same to the top, so that's pretty good. Just play around with that for a bit. And again, let's go to render image. There you go. It's probably a bit too harsh, but you know what? Actually, I'm actually quite taken with that. I quite like that. So I'm gonna stick with that one, and I'll let you play around with it. So next thing we're gonna do is very quickly drop a light in. Now this is one of the easiest bits. So we go for a point light. We want to put it in the middle. So we're gonna go to all the zeros. Oops. Yeah, reduce 0, 0 like that. And here's a fun thing: you can make this any color you want. So it's, there you go, like that. Let's leave the EEVEE, put the bloom on. Fat cycles. Make sure you're in GPU. Very important you're in GPU. Always set your GPU. And make the background black. Like that. Now, the light will need to come up a bit, maybe 100. Make it any colour you want, really. I mean, orangey yellow is quite, traditional for these sorts of things. Let's go to compositing. Let's turn on glare. Glare, if you can spell glare, would be really useful. Turn fog glow on, and I always put a denoiser in there just for habit, really. And then what we're going to do is we do not need it set to 4000, set it to 100, and then just hit the render. Let's see what that does. That didn't take very long at all. Well, that's pretty funny, actually. Quite like the look of that. Okay. What do we have that one set to there? Well, let's crank up that light a little bit. So 100. Let's make it 500. Let's try that one. See there how the light is already coming through. That's why I say, you can't really see what's going on. Yeah, maybe because we left that bump texture a bit heavy there. It doesn't really matter what the interior of this looks like. You can spend as much time as you like just playing around those settings. I wonder if I was to knock out the light. Turn that out completely. Let's just, go on, let's do that. Render that image. See what that produces. A lot of this is all about experimentation. Now that actually, I quite like that. That's pretty groovy. That's really cool. That, but we're not going to stick with that for this one. That's it just gives you an idea of what to do. So put that light back on. Now then, with the light itself, if we're animating, if you're not animating this, then you don't need to worry about this. But if you were going to the full whole hog of animating it, you can't just leave it at not 1000 but 500. It needs to flicker. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to insert a keyframe, and when it comes to the timeline editor, the graph editor even, make sure that's select. Yep, all looking good. We want to vary the power, so we're going to go to modifiers, add a modifier. I tend to find that noise works best. The problem with light, though, on the power, is that you need to give it, if I was to leave that as is, yes, it would flicker, but it wouldn't be particularly obvious that it's flickering. So what we need to do is massively up the strength, and it needs to be quite significant for it to be visible. So let's, in fact, I'm tempted to say 500. In fact, let's go back to EEVEE so we can demonstrate this a bit more. Now, I don't know how easy that's going to be to see on YouTube, but it is flickering a little bit. Let's change the phase a little bit. No, it's There we go, that's what we're after. Well, that's 600. Don't want it turning off, but you do want it to be visible. So, it's annoying they don't have a play button here. Could really do with a play button. It's kind of glowing in and out. I don't know how easy that is to see, but it is doing stuff. So let's go back to the graph editor. Crank that up. It's about 700. And let's tune that in a little bit. Now this is still running, so there we go. That's on my screen. I'm seeing that, so I'm hopeful on YouTube when you play this video back, you'll be able to see that as well. That so yeah, that's looking pretty good. Okay, yeah, cool. Let's stick with that. In fact, let us go back to timeline editor, pause that, and let's just very quickly animate that. So EEVEE, and let's just switch our various things on. Conclusion, render image. Cool. Okay, so let's have a little play with that, and then it's time to move on to the next bit. So just a couple of quick tweaks to the geometry on this. I've tidied up a couple of nodes in that lid, and we've reduced the strength of the main light from about 1,000 down to something a bit more reasonable, like 500, and then added a slight green tint to it. So you can see there that it's actually quite effective. It doesn't look like a perfectly realistic pumpkin, but you know, it looks pretty cool. So we're missing something at the moment, and that's the stalk. So let's quickly go and build one. So if we go back to our main session, so let's build that in there so it's not using too much firepower to run. Now then, all add, and what we want to do is add a cylinder. There we go. Now normally your cylinder will come in on some weird massive numbers, so let's move that around, and then let's move this up to about here. We don't realistically need to have that much information there. Let's come out of shading into layout. Might be a bit easier to see. Now what we want to do is we've accepted that. Let's go to edit mode, and what we want to do is just drag these edges in. This is going to kind of create that kind of stalk effect. So we want to go to vertices and then grab, oh no, we want to do it shift, not control, we want shift. Just go around and select them. You see there, I'm lining this up to our lid. Won't be perfect, but it'll be pretty close. Now in edit mode, make sure proportional editing is switched off, and what to do then is hit scale. If you say scale, then there's a phone going off in the background there. If we hit the scale button there, you'll see in all three directions it's scaling. We don't want it to scale in Z, so we say Shift and Z, and therefore it's just doing it in these two axes here, which is fine. Okay, that's kind of your stalk effect. Then we go to the top, so you go to faces, click the top. Now I want to scale that down so it all comes down together. I might just very quickly GZ it and bring that down as well. And I might just very quickly rotate a little bit there. And then what we're going to do is extrude, come out a bit, scale it again, extrude, and just a last rotation. Oops. Probably best to do that away, like that, and scale that down. Scale it down like that. It just kind of creates this this little stalk effect there. Now, for the time being, we are going to be doing some manipulation with this, but just for the time being, I want to give this the same material as a pumpkin skin. The reason for that is we're about to add our super duper weird kind of ghostly animation effect. And now what I want to do is work with one shading node section and then just adjust it slightly. So we'll copy it and then adjust it to the stock itself. See that we've changed our name to pumpkin skin. There's only one material in there, so if you're following along, that's where we're at. So yeah, that's starting to look pretty good. So right then, let's store that. Let's just save this. It's always good to keep saving. Okay then, so if we just have a quick look at the render engine intro video here, what we're trying to do is do something very similar to what you see here with the transition effect. Now, this one works really well in EEVEE, and the reason for that is if you look a bit closer there, you can actually see that the emblem is actually hollow. So what we want to do is a bit more complex. We actually want that to fill with a volumetric effect. So if we go back to our pumpkin layout and we go back to this shader nodes here, let's just move that up. We can zoom in here. What we want to do is basically have a transition effect in here. What we're going to do now is introduce the volumetric. So we're going to break that one, so now it becomes 0. Let's put that back on there just to show that it's not completely wiped out. And now what we want is a mix shader, which we're going to plug into. We'll do it on the surface first. Make sure you're in cycles, by the way. Then what we want to do is mix shader into there. We want an emission. We want a kind of glowy effect. We'll just leave that as 0 for well, just a white simple at the moment. In fact, we want it. Put the best of what's been in there. Then we want a color ramp. I'm going to do color into there. And then we're going to have a gradient. So, if you remember how gradients work, you plug into here. It should start to show you some stuff. Control T for node wrangler. Switch that to object. Will that catch up? There we go. I want to drag that down so you can see it there. So what this is control is kind of the sharpness. So it's kind of blurring off a bit. We want it about there. Now, the moment you can see that it's coming in from the side, you could actually have a little play and have it come in from the side. But we're going to make this come in from beneath. So we want 90 degrees on that, so it's from bottom up. And we don't want this kind of defined edge here. We want it to be a bit kind of spooky, a bit weird and kind of glowing in. So we need a noise texture, which I'm going to plan down here. We want a mix RGB, which we will plant in here. And that one will go into there. And that object will go into the vector as well. And the first thing you can see there is that it's got this, almost by default, it's got a pretty cool effect there. But if we increase that, it's a bit like that. Again, you can play around with this, so you don't have to commit just yet. Do that. I think 50% was probably all right, actually. Then what we want is a color ramp. I'm going to plug the color into the color unit there, and I'm also going to plant that one into the bottom bit here. So what we do now is bring that up. Move that up slightly at about there so we can actually see what we're doing. Okay, add another one over to here. Make that one black. And this one, let's give this a quick color. You can see there, and then we up the emission to something groovy like 500. You know what, 500 does look pretty cool. It's not going to be very long lasting this, so move that across to there. And you can add, oops, wrong button. There we go. play around with the colours. That looks pretty cool, like as is. Actually, you know what? I'm going to make that 250. Okay, so that's bouncing off that there surface. So that doesn't look too bad. Obviously, we are going to do stuff with the stall. We're not going to just leave that as is. Because it's set to object mode, it's bouncing off the same setup here. So we will be manipulating that. But now what we want to do is mix our current shader with this. But first thing I'm going to do is switch that over here. Such. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have another mix shader planted into here. Put the BDF into there. And we want this to work on the same way. So we want that color ramp from our kind of transition effect to go through the same plug. And then finally, we want let the computer catch up. See, it's taking a moment or two for it to do its job. Actually, I want a transparent in there. So whilst that's doing that, let's do that. Catch up. Fastest computer ever, this. There we go. Now then, let's just... GPU's on. Yep, that's good. Go to that one there. There we go, that's more like it. Should have switched that one on to begin with. Give that a second or two for it to catch up. And then what we want to do is just drag this up a little bit. So if we go about halfway, now we can start really playing around with this. You can sharpen that up a little bit if you like. It's not much different than before. And then bring that down just a little bit. There we go. Now the way this animates is we'll drag this all the way down to 0. So insert that. Oh, well, we need to make sure we're actually on frame 0. That'd be a good start. Timeline 0. Insert one there. And then what we'll do is we go, whoops, wrong button. We go all the way to the end. Drag that all the way, oops, all the way up that way. Insert keyframe there. So when you hit the go button, the computer might struggle to catch up. Might have a quick play around actually with that. So let's go back to about here. Let's clear single keyframe. Oh, clear all keyframes. Let's do it that way. Come over here this way. Yeah, clear that one as well. Go back to 0. All the way down. Whoops, don't want to go too far down. Let's start about there. Insert keyframe. Let's go to about 100. All the way up. Insert that keyframe. Let's just see how quick that is. To 0. That's a bit more like it. A bit more spooky and weird. In fact, we can just make that 125. 125 there even. And that just gives us the opportunity to manipulate this. The thing about animation is by doing it single frames, it's very difficult to get an appreciation for it. It's when it's moving you can see what the effect is meant to look like. In fact, let's just go back to layout. Let's select that one. Go back to layout. This one over here. Find it eventually. Editor. Because we're in edit mode, that's why. Okay, so what I forgot to do there was change it. We don't want it to go on gradient, this one. We want it to go on linear. So let's change that extrapolation style, make it linear. Now let's try that one more time, and this should look pretty good. See that the computer's struggling a bit with time. So now we've done that. That looks pretty awesome. We're going to put that to the end. Now we're going to return to this stalk bit. So into the shading tab. Now that we've played with all this, we're going to copy it and we're going to call it the stalk. And the first thing we want to do is make this a bit more realistic, so we're going to change these colours a little bit. A bit darker. Make that one a bit darker as well. There you go, and immediately that looks pretty good. And now what we want to do is we want to just quickly manipulate this. We don't want the stalk to appear at the same time, so let's do a side-on view. You can see there the stalk is beginning to appear. So we're going to clear keyframes. Move that back a little bit to there. I'm going to wait until that catches up. I think it should start to appear about there. So insert that keyframe and then all the way to the end. There. About there. Yeah, about there. Insert keyframe there. That's worked out pretty well. Okay, cool. So let's just pause that for a moment. Let's grab that and about here. And then let's just see how long that's meant to take to render as a single image. So notice I've set the samples to 100. Well, now that we're kind of happy with it, might want to increase the samples. We are going to have to do something about that lighting effect. So what we're going to do is we'll drop that lighting until it's fully appeared, and then it can go back into its flickering effect. But that's only taken 14 seconds per slide. So 250 times 14. Yeah, it's probably about an hour to render that 250 slides. So yeah, let's do that, and yeah, we'll get back to it. Okay, so in cycles, that looks pretty cool, but you could run into problems when you run this in EEVEE. In fact, let's just run a quick example now. You can see there that it's just basically a garbled mess, so it's all because of the volumetrics. However, it's not to say that EEVEE can't be used. We just need to do a few things to the shaders. So let's go back into our shaders, move that up there, zoom in. Now the problem is this line here with EEVEE. So let's turn this into EEVEE mode, and it should just become that mess again. So let's disconnect that, take that one out of the equation. Now we need to mix these together. What we need to do now is do a mix shader. I'm going to plant that one. Yes, plant that one there. Now then, to make this work, we need to disconnect our transparency. We need to lock this one into here. Now, I find the best thing to do is switch that one to there. Lock our cool effect into here. Let's let that catch up. There we go. And that's already looking pretty good. You can see it's already flipped around. Actually, let's just double check that. See if we do it this way. Let it catch up. The computer's working quite hard at the moment. In your own time. There we go. Now what we need to do is plug transparency in. Give it a second. I need on home music. Okay, it's not quite gone to plan. Why is that gone to plan? Let's just double check and make sure that is doing. It's into there. If it's that way round. Sometimes it is just a very simple case of plugging them the other way around. There we go. Catch up. I need that meme with the sometime later bit on it. Why is this not catching up? Sometimes actually it's that way around. Ah, yes. Forgot to do that. There we go. Let's just try that again. Plug that in there and that in there. So we went with plan A. Let that catch up. What is the computer doing? Right, that's not playing ball. So let's go back to plan A. Top socket, that one is into the bottom. And then the way around it is to switch these two round. So what we're going to do now is we're going to drop that to 0. We're going to pump that one up to white. And then let's stretch that on. And there you go. So there's a little bit of poking around. But essentially what we've done is we've now looked at everything into the surface. So if we quickly render that, you can see straight away what the problem is. See, there's big gaps in there. There's not really much we can do about that here. But if it's nicely glowing, let's make that quite high, 200. There you go. That should work. So let's go and render that and see whether that looks like side by side with the cycles. Okay, so there we have it, and I think, to be honest, that looks pretty good. I think if the pumpkin was a little bit thicker, you'd really see the difference between the cycles and the EEVEE. In fact, here's another example that I did that really captures the cycles effect with a much thicker cup. But it just goes to show that you can apply this to pretty much any shaded combination you like. If you just use that bottom transparency effect, ghostly effect. In fact, you can vary the waviness as well. So it doesn't have to be wavy. You can have it appear as lines or other textures. So that pretty much sums that one up. And yeah, so here are just a couple of other examples that we've got. Our Barry, Terry, and Bob. I know, coming up with these names, great. So yeah, that pretty much finishes this this tutorial off. So if you've made it this far, thank you very much. I hope you've learned something from it. Again, if you want to jump around the video, please feel free to do so. That's exactly what the chapters are there for. So all that leaves for me is just to say have a fantastic Halloween, and I hope you're all staying safe out there and enjoy the candy. So until next time, thank you very much.